In a far galaxy, the Star Throne was once the seat of the ruler who controlled the flow of starlight, able to create suns or make them fade into darkness. Whole civilizations thrived under its glow, and the ruler's will could shift the fate of worlds in a single command. But that was long ago, before the Great Collapse. 100 years had passed since the day the throne was destroyed, swallowed by fire and silence, its power lost forever, or so everyone believed. On the drifting city of Vega Reach, where broken ships floated like dead fish in the Black Sea of space, life was a daily fight for scraps. 17-year-old Oren Vale knew this better than anyone. An orphan since the age of 6, he survived by scavenging the forgotten places where others feared to go. The older scavengers said there was nothing left worth taking in the asteroid belts, but Oren had a habit of finding things that shouldn't exist. That was why, on this cold, silent day, his small, rusted shuttle drifted toward an abandoned asteroid station that hadn't shown signs of life in decades. The metal corridors groaned as his boots touched down, his helmet light cutting through layers of dust that floated like frozen smoke in the airless dark. His breath was slow, measured. Every scavenger knew that abandoned didn't always mean empty. Some stations hid dangers worse than pirates: ancient defense drones, unstable reactors, and things that had no name at all. He moved deeper, scanning the walls for anything he could salvage. A broken comm panel here, a piece of wiring there. Hardly worth the trip. But then, as he reached a sealed bulkhead at the far end, he felt it. A vibration. Faint, but steady, like the thrum of a living heart. Oren froze. No power should be running here. He pressed his palm against the cold metal, and the vibration pulsed stronger, sending a strange warmth into his hand. It wasn't mechanical. Machines had a rhythm. This was different. Against his better judgment, he pried open the bulkhead with his crowbar, metal screaming in the stillness. Beyond it was a wide chamber unlike anything else in the station. The walls shimmered faintly, their surfaces traced with glowing lines of gold and silver. At the center, bathed in a dim halo of light, stood a massive chair. No, not a chair. A throne. It was carved from a black metal that seemed to swallow the light around it. Yet veins of starlight pulsed across its surface in time with the vibration in the air. Oren's heart pounded. He had seen sketches of the Star Throne in old history. Fragments. But those were myths. Stories told to make children dream of better times. This couldn't be real. And yet, it was here, humming softly, as if asleep. He stepped closer, each movement slow, almost reverent. Something in the air felt heavy, as though the space around the throne was thicker than the rest of the room. The hum deepened, and for a moment, Oren thought he heard a whisper, too faint to understand, but enough to make his skin prickle. He reached out, fingers trembling, and touched the cold metal. Light exploded behind his eyes. He wasn't in the chamber anymore. He was standing in a vast starfield, where suns ignited and died in seconds, where rivers of light flowed between worlds. The throne's voice filled his mind, deep and ancient. Rise, heir of light. The vision shifted. He saw worlds burning, skies without stars, endless darkness swallowing the galaxy. He gasped, stumbling back, but his hand remained locked to the throne as if something held it there. Then, as quickly as it began, the vision ended. The hum faded to silence. His breathing was loud in his helmet. He looked down and saw that a small shard of the throne's black metal had broken away, glowing faintly in his palm. Before he could process what had happened, another sound reached his ears, a sharp, metallic echo. Footsteps. Heavy, deliberate. They weren't his. They were coming from the dark corridor beyond the bulkhead. Oren's mind raced. No one else was supposed to be here. His shuttle was the only ship docked outside. He killed his helmet light, plunging the chamber into dim starlight, and slipped behind a pillar. The footsteps grew louder, the sound of metal striking metal, each step steady and patient, like whoever or whatever was coming had no reason to hurry. Then a shadow filled the doorway. It was tall, armored in black with glowing red slits where its eyes should be. The figure paused, scanning the chamber, the faint glow from Orin's shard reflecting off its armor. Orin's grip tightened. Around the shard, his pulse thundering in his ears. He didn't know what the throne was or why it had spoken to him. But in that moment, he understood one thing with terrifying clarity. Whatever that thing in the doorway was, it had come for him. And it would not stop until it got what it wanted. Orin's. Breath caught in his throat as the armored figure stepped into the chamber, the faint golden veins in the walls reflecting against its shadowed body. Its movements were slow but deliberate, like it wasn't just searching. It was hunting. The air around it seemed to grow colder, the quiet hum of the throne now replaced by an eerie silence that made every sound Orin made feel too loud. He stayed pressed against the pillar, holding the glowing shard tightly in his fist. It felt warm, almost pulsing in his palm like it was alive. The figure stopped in front of the throne and tilted its head, as if listening to something Orin couldn't hear. The red slits of its eyes narrowed, and for a moment Orin thought it might leave. But then the shard in his hand gave off a faint flicker of light, and the figure's head snapped toward his hiding place. Orin's heart jumped. He didn't wait. He ran. His boots pounded against the metal floor, the sound echoing through the hollow corridors. Behind him came the metallic thud of heavy footsteps, faster now, matching his pace. He didn't dare look back. He knew what would happen if it caught him. He darted around a corner and through a half-collapsed passage, sparks raining from broken cables overhead. The station's dark hallways twisted like a maze, and he prayed the figure didn't know them as well as he did. His only thought was to get back to his shuttle. But just as he rounded another bend, a sharp flash of light sliced across the wall beside him. A beam of energy had missed his head by inches. Orin dove behind a stack of rusted cargo crates, his chest heaving. The beam had come from some kind of weapon, and now he could hear the soft hum of it charging again. He needed to move. He spotted a maintenance hatch low on the wall, half broken but big enough to crawl through. Clutching the shard, he scrambled inside, metal scraping against his suit. The tunnel was narrow, forcing him to crawl on his elbows and knees, the echo of the footsteps now replaced by the clang of something heavy striking the hatch behind him. The figure was trying to force its way in. Orin pushed himself faster, ignoring the sharp edges cutting at his gloves. The tunnel opened into a small service bay. He stumbled out, scanning for an exit, but what he saw made him freeze. In the center of the bay was another piece of strange black metal, curved and etched with the same starlight veins as the throne. It was partially embedded in the floor, like it had grown there. The shard in his hand pulsed brighter, matching the glow of the object. He didn't know what it was, but something deep inside told him it mattered. He reached out, but before his fingers touched it, the bay door exploded inward. The armored figure stepped through the smoke, weapon raised. Without thinking, Orin grabbed the black metal fragment from the floor. The moment he did, light flared around him. The air seemed to bend, and suddenly the service bay was gone. He was standing in open space, the stars close enough to touch. Rivers of light flowed around him, each one carrying the warmth of 1,000 suns. A voice, the same deep voice from before, spoke in his mind. The throne is not dead, and neither are you. Orin barely had time to process the words before the vision shattered, and he was back in the bay. But something had changed. The shard and the fragment had fused together in his hand, forming a smooth piece of black starlit, metal that hummed with energy. The armored figure froze, its weapon lowering slightly, almost like it recognized the object. "Give it to me," it said, its voice cold and mechanical, yet carrying an edge of something else. Desperation. Oren's fear twisted into defiance. He didn't know why the throne had chosen him, but he knew one thing. Whatever this was, it couldn't fall into those hands. "Come and take it," he said, and the moment the words left his mouth, the shard's glow erupted into a blinding wave of light that swallowed the room. The light burst outward like a living thing, slamming into the armored figure with a force that shook the bay. The walls groaned, metal panels warping under the strange energy. Oren shielded his eyes, but the glow didn't burn. It wrapped around him like warm sunlight, steady and calm, even as chaos erupted around him. The figure staggered back, raising its weapon to fire, but the blast never came. The light bent around the barrel, twisting it until the weapon clattered uselessly to the floor. Oren's heart pounded as the glow slowly faded, revealing the figure still standing, its armor cracked in several places, faint golden veins glowing through the fractures. It didn't speak. It simply looked at him, no, at the object in his hand, with a strange, almost fearful intensity. Then, without warning, it turned and leapt through the jagged hole in the bay door, disappearing into the shadows of the station. Oren stood frozen for a moment, his breath ragged. He wanted to chase it, to find out why it had been hunting him, but a deeper instinct screamed at him to get out. The station felt different now, more alive. The hum of power was stronger, and he could feel faint vibrations under his boots, like the whole place was waking up. He slipped the fused shard into his pack and sprinted toward the docking bay where his shuttle waited. Every hallway seemed to stretch longer than it should, the shadows shifting like they were watching him. Twice he caught glimpses of faint, humanoid shapes in the edges of his vision, glowing gold before vanishing. By the time he reached the docking bay, the lights above were flickering in a rhythmic pulse, matching the beat of his heart. His shuttle's canopy was already open. He jumped in, powering up the engines, when a deep, metallic voice crackled over the station's comm system. "The air has awakened. Seal all exits." Oren's blood ran cold. He'd never heard that voice before, but the authority in it made him feel like a child caught stealing. Red warning lights flashed along the bay doors as massive blast shutters began to descend. He slammed the controls forward, pushing the engines to their limits. The shuttle roared forward, slipping under, the final shutter just before it slammed shut. The sudden freedom of space hit him like a rush of air after drowning. Stars stretched endlessly ahead, but the station still loomed behind him, its dark silhouette now lined with golden veins of light spreading like cracks through stone. He didn't know what that meant, but every instinct told him this wasn't over. As Vega Reach came into view in the distance, Oren tried to steady his breathing. The fused shard felt heavier in his pack, as though it was carrying more than just metal, like it was carrying a choice. He didn't know who the armored figure was, or what the voice meant by air, but he knew one thing for certain. Someone out there believed the Star Throne still had power. And now, they believed that power belonged to him. Far behind him, deep in the asteroid station, the armored figure knelt before a tall, shadowed presence in a room lined with broken starlight mirrors. "The throne's heart is moving again," the figure said, its voice low. The shadow leaned forward, eyes like dying suns burning through the darkness. "Then the galaxy will burn to take it back." Oren barely slept that night. The image of the golden-veined station burned in his mind, and the words, "The air has awakened," echoed with every beat of his heart. The drifting city of Vega Reach was usually loud, full of the hum of trade ships and the shouting of market vendors. But this morning felt different. The air seemed heavier, as if the stars themselves were holding their breath. He kept his pack close, never letting the fused shard out of his sight. Every time his fingers brushed against it, he felt that same faint heartbeat, calm but unyielding, as though it was waiting for something, or someone. He tried to blend into the crowd, but it didn't work for long. On the upper level of the market, he spotted them. Two figures in dark cloaks, faces hidden, moving with a precision no common trader had. They weren't browsing. They were hunting. Oren ducked into an alley, his pulse racing. He'd been chased before, by debt collectors, by gang scouts. But this was different. He could feel their focus, like a cold needle between his shoulder blades. He turned corner after corner, trying to lose them in the maze of steel walkways, but when he finally risked a glance over his shoulder, they were still there. And closer. He sprinted down a maintenance stairwell toward the lower decks, the dim light flickering against rusted pipes. His boots clanged against the grating, but the sound of footsteps behind him never faltered. At the bottom, he slipped through a half-open hatch into the recycling plant, where steam hissed from massive venting towers. The noise was deafening, and for a moment he thought he'd lost them, until a hand shot out of the mist, grabbing his arm with inhuman strength. Oren twisted free, stumbling backward, but before he could run, the second figure stepped from the steam. A woman's voice cut through the air, sharp and steady. "You have something that doesn't belong to you." Oren's mind raced. If they knew about the shard, that meant they were connected to the armored figure. "I don't know what you're talking about," he lied, but his voice betrayed him. The woman's companion, a tall man with pale, almost silver eyes, studied him silently, then spoke in a low tone. "He has it. I can feel the throne's pulse." Oren's breath caught. They knew. The woman took a step forward. "You're in danger. That thing will draw every warlord and relic hunter in the Outer Rim to your doorstep. If you keep it, you'll be dead before the next cycle." Oren's instinct told him not to trust them. But another part of him, the part that remembered the vision of rivers of light, hesitated. "Who are you?" he asked. The woman's gaze didn't waver. "Keepers of the Star Throne. What's left of us?" The words sent a strange chill through him. He wanted to ask more, but the ground beneath their feet suddenly trembled. The steam vents hissed louder, and a deafening crack split the air as the far wall of the plant exploded inward. From the smoke stepped three towering machines, their sleek armor marked with the golden veins Oren had seen on the station. Their eyes burned red as their heavy footfalls shook the floor. The silver-eyed man drew a weapon from beneath his cloak, a blade of pure starlight that hummed in the thick air. "Run," he told Oren without looking back. But Oren didn't run. Something inside him, something tied to the shard, whispered that leaving now would be a mistake. And when the nearest machine's gaze locked on him, the shard pulsed hard, like it was answering a call. The pulse from the shard struck Oren like a wave, almost knocking the breath from his lungs. His vision blurred, and for a second the noise of the recycling plant faded into a strange, ringing silence. The three towering machines froze mid-step, their glowing red eyes flickering, as if the same pulse had reached them too. The silver-eyed man took the chance to move, slicing clean through the nearest machine's leg with his blade of starlight. The severed limb crashed to the grated floor, sparks spraying into the steam. The woman grabbed Oren's arm, pulling him back, but the shard in his pack grew warmer. No, hotter, with every second. Oren yanked free from her grip. "Something's happening," he said, his voice shaking. "It's like it's calling them." The woman's face tightened. "Not calling them, controlling them. But you can't hold it for long. If you try, it will burn you from the inside out." Oren didn't understand how he could control anything. He wasn't trained, he wasn't even supposed to be here. But when the second machine turned toward him, its weapon arm powering up, his instincts took over. He gripped the shard through the pack, and the heat flared into a rush of light. It shot outward, wrapping around the machine like golden chains. The machine jerked, its arm freezing in place. Then slowly, impossibly, it knelt before him. The other two began to tremble, their armor plates vibrating as if under enormous pressure. The silver-eyed man looked at Orin in open shock. "You really are the heir," he murmured. The moment shattered when a deep metallic roar rolled through the air, vibrating the walls. From the hole in the far wall stepped something much larger than the others, a war mech, its body like a fortress of black steel, its golden veins burning brighter than the rest. Its head turned toward Orin, and in that instant, the shard in his pack almost leapt from his hands like it wanted to join with the mech. Orin staggered back, but the woman shoved him behind her. "We can't fight that here," she said. "The whole plant will come down." The mech's eyes locked on Orin, and its voice boomed, deeper and colder than anything he'd heard before. "Return the heart of the throne." The words weren't a request, they were a sentence. The ground shook as it advanced, tearing through machinery like paper. The silver-eyed man slashed at the last smaller machine, sending it tumbling into a vent shaft, then grabbed Orin's shoulder. "Move!" Steam blasted from ruptured pipes as they ran, weaving between shifting catwalks and collapsing walls. The war mech followed, its massive steps shaking every platform they crossed. Orin's mind spun. Heir? Heart of the throne? None of it made sense, but one thing was clear. The shard wasn't just some relic. It was the reason he was still alive, and maybe the reason he wouldn't be for much longer. They burst out of the plant into the open industrial docks, the cold stars stretching above them. The woman hit a control panel, and a hidden transport ship powered up, its engines flaring. Blue. The war mech burst from the plant behind them, its massive frame outlined in fire and smoke. Orin glanced back just in time to see it raise its weapon, a beam of molten light gathering at its core. And in that blinding moment, the shard's voice, not a sound, but a presence, whispered inside his mind, "If you stand, worlds will rise. If you fall, the galaxy dies." The war mech's molten beam fired, a roaring column of light tearing across the docks. Orin didn't think. He just acted. His hand shot into his pack, gripping the shard directly. The instant his fingers touched it, the world around him slowed, the sound of the blast becoming a distant, muffled thunder. Golden light erupted from the shard, expanding outward like a shield. The beam struck, but instead of burning through them, it split into streams that bent away, carving molten scars into the dock's metal surface. The air smelled of scorched steel and ozone. The woman pulled Orin toward the waiting ship, shouting something he couldn't hear through the ringing in his ears. The silver-eyed man leapt aboard first, covering them with his glowing blade as the war mech advanced, its voice shaking the air. "You carry the heart, but you are not ready to command the throne. Surrender, and I may spare your world." Orin's chest tightened, anger sparking inside him. "You destroyed my world before I even knew its name," he shouted back, surprising himself. He climbed aboard the transport just as the engines roared to life. The ship rose, its thrusters kicking up waves of dust and debris, but the war mech leapt. Yes, leapt after them, claws digging into the side of the dock. With one final, impossible burst of strength, Orin held the shard high. Light poured from it, forming a massive spear of golden energy that shot downward, striking the mech square in its core. The machine howled, its golden veins flickering wildly, before exploding in a storm of sparks and molten fragments. The blast hurled the transport higher, tossing Orin backward into the cabin. The ship broke free of the dock's gravity, shooting toward the endless field of stars. Orin's chest still heaved as the light faded from the shard, leaving it cold and silent in his hand. The woman knelt beside him, her face both relieved and worried. "That was only one," she said quietly. "There will be more. Many more. They will not stop until the throne is theirs again." The silver-eyed man stood by the cockpit, his gaze fixed on the streaking stars. "And until then, the heir must survive, even if he doesn't yet believe he is one." Orin tightened his grip on the shard, feeling the faintest pulse return. steady, patient, almost like it was waiting for his choice. For the first time, he didn't feel like just a scavenger. He felt like someone the galaxy might actually be watching. "Then we'd better find the throne," he said, his voice steady despite the fear still twisting inside him. Outside, the stars seemed to burn brighter, as if daring him to try. The shard's pulse matched his heartbeat, and somewhere, far, away in the black between suns, something ancient stirred, aware that its heir had finally taken his first step toward it. The galaxy was waking up, and nothing would be the same again.